Hi everybody, welcome to ZealZaddy. My name is Scott, my pronouns are he, him, and this is StoryTalk, our TTRPG discussion show. Tonight, what a show we have. We are going to help you as a creator find better ways of getting your product out. We're talking about TTRPG crowdfunding, projects, process, all of that. So let's talk about creating a successful crowdfunding project as the lifeblood of the TTRPG creator economy, which it is. It's the dream for capital-starved creators, which we all are, I assume. If you're not, wow, congratulations. Great to be born with all that wealth. Creators keep control of their creations. That's a benefit. Financing is accessible without the need for traditional lending relationships, not afforded often to small businesses or individuals, especially niche industries. And it encourages customer engagement with long-term delivery requirements. Often these things take a year to deliver because you're getting your funding like a patron, where you're getting it in advance of anything, of anything being created. So what's not to love from the perspective of the creator? But what about from the perspective of the patron? They get a wide range of new products from varied creators and the positive feeling of supporting creators with ideas they love. So what does it take to create a crowdfunding campaign that funds? Let's talk about it. Every picture tells a story, so let's see who's in the pictures tonight. All right, everybody's here now. This is our first couples on the show, which I'm super excited about. I had to make a special wide frame for them to fit in. Why don't we go around clockwise, starting with Kaylin, and let you say a little bit about who you are, what you do, where they can find you. I'll drop your links in, and we can go from there.
All right. Hi, I'm Kaylin Applewhite, pronouns she, her. I am a writer and TTRPG content creator. I recently, our most recent Kickstarter was for my book, Awakening Anne, which is on Amazon now. You can get there through my Linktree. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And so choose your pick.
I am the other half of the dynamic duo, Zach Applewhite. By day, search engine optimization specialist, which is fat talk for corporate marketer. And by night, I am an indie marketer to help further our business in the TTRPG industry, and recently expanding into Kaylin's books. Pronouns he, him, sorry.
All right. Ted.
Hi, I'm Ted Bushman, pronouns also he, him. I am an actor, composer, and writer based in New York City, and I'm here because I'm currently crowdfunding The Last Caravan, a Cars and Aliens role-playing game on Kickstarter.
All right. We are an Only Crits affiliate if you want to save some money on some awesome dice, which I just did a giveaway for 2 sets last week. They are getting ready to ship any moment now. If you have questions, please type question in chat so it's easy for me to spot. But in the meantime, let's just get going with some cool questions. I have about, I don't know, 1 million questions. I'm going to have to narrow this down to about 10 or 20 tonight. Let me bring over one other thing. During intermission, I show Kickstarters that are upcoming or running. Please check them out if there's anything you find. I support small creators. I don't do Kickstarters for the big companies. Make sure that we keep this TTRPG golden age going. All right, I'm going to start with the simplest, easiest question, and I think and anybody can answer in any order. By the way, you can answer. You can jump in. It's an open discussion, open table. What was your biggest concern when you began your very first crowdfunding campaign? What was the thing that terrified you most, and how'd you overcome it? Or did you?
Not funding. That's always a scary one.
Well, ours is a funny little story because I started doing Kickstarters for poetry. I sold poetry for $1 a pop.
What?
And so I wasn't afraid. And this was in the time when they would actually let you have a funding goal of $1. They no longer let you do that. You need to have a minimum of, I think, 10 or 25. So I wasn't afraid of funding. It was more of like, I also wasn't afraid if people would like my poems because they only paid $1 for them. And I was writing them in my head while I was delivering pizza. And so I wasn't particularly concerned if they were good. It was more of like, will my wife let me? She did, spoiler. And how far will she let me go with this? Were probably my biggest concerns. And now we're in business together. So that answers both questions.
Pretty well.
Wow, that's cool.
I also jumped in from, my first Kickstarter was not a TTRPG, so I was worried because I was funding a theater project, and funding a theater project Kickstarter is a terrible platform for it. You see so little there because there's no product. You can basically sell it as a ticket, but the thing is, people aren't going to buy tickets to a show internationally that's happening in one physical space. And so it's a much harder platform than it is for games, which I think it's kind of the ideal platform, which is why games have blown up on Kickstarter in the last 10 years. In terms of this project, my biggest worry was, will this project be seen by the people who will like it? And I'm still a little bit worrying about that. Like, I think there are more people out there who it might be the right product for, who aren't seeing it. But I only have so much control over that. So, yeah.
Nice. I mean, that was the easy question.
So, yeah, good.
The next one, though, I want to talk about like mentors and stuff. Who taught you or gave you the most or best advice when you were getting started on how to do a Kickstarter? Because today you're going to be doing that for other people. So who did you learn from?
I looked at other Kickstarters that were similar to what I was trying to sell, by like the ones that were very successful. How did they structure their page? How many rewards did they have? Obviously you can't try and meet their funding goals if you're looking at the most successful ones, because they probably have some sort of platform building. But often, even when we made the pivot from TTRPG materials to publishing, I re-researched it because they structure it completely differently. But after your first go selling a product, you do kind of come up with a blueprint model that you can just fall back on.
Yeah.
For me, in the early days, it was a little bit of Jamie Stegmaier, who does a KS Lessons blog. He wrote a book. I read the book. And I also am a very prolific reader, so I was reading a lot of nonfiction business and management books, and I was in school for business management with the focus on marketing. So it was actually just a way for me to take things that I was learning in the classroom and start applying them to a project and testing them in the field and seeing what worked and what didn't. And that was probably that, plus just the School of Hard Knocks, were my best teachers.
Nice.
For me, I had a few people who I worked with on my first project who were producers who were very helpful. And then for this time around, Spencer Campbell, designer of Slayers and Nova and a bunch of other, he's a fabulous designer. I met him at a convention and was like, hey, can I ask your advice? And he was like, anytime. And I called him up on Zoom, and he and I had a very, very helpful conversation. So basically, 90% of everything I'm going to say tonight is going to be stuff Spencer Campbell told me.
That's awesome. So you're paying Spencer Campbell forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So go check out his Kickstarters he's doing a Kickstarter for his new game Rune soon. So check that out.
Awesome.
There's me paying it back to him as well.
Very cool. What crowdfunding platforms did you explore before landing on where you landed? And have you tried any of the other ones? Did you end up where you are because it was the best one, or the easiest one, or the most accessible? What led you to where you are, and what did you try or examine before making your choice?
We've been hogging it, and I want Ted to have a turn.
No, you're good. Definitely brand recognition for me. I think honestly, Kickstarter, I think, has a lot of pedigree and has done this for a while and has a lot of good elements. But I also think that there are probably a lot of these up and comers probably do have some really nice benefits because they're really trying to attract people and their projects a little bit more. So I did not do very much research at all because I had sort of this existing knowledge of that. So, but I bet those other platforms are awesome and would seriously consider them next time I went through.
Yeah, I've seen 4 that get some legitimate gaming. That off the top of my head, there's obviously Kickstarter, but I've also seen Crowdfundr dropping here and there. And they do something very interesting that I haven't seen others. They do very long campaigns, like 60 days instead of 30. And Backerkit, which most people know as the second part of their Kickstarter, but they also do full campaigns now. I believe you have to be invited in after doing successful Kickstarters. I'm not 100% on that. If somebody wants to tell me if that's the case. And the last one's Indiegogo, which I've seen one or two things, not very much in quite a while. I'm not even sure if they're... I haven't seen one in a long time. It's been a couple of years, but I suspect there's here and there a few that happen there. When you're starting your crowdfund, there's two networks that I think are important, but I'd like you to kind of delve into how important they are. Your social network being one for marketing, and your creator network that you're using, as part of your campaign. Like if you hire a designer or a writer or an editor or whatever, do they matter to your crowdfund also? Does that make a difference that they have a following or that their reputation precedes them?
You want me to take this one?
Well, on the social side, I think that we definitely, with our latest Kickstarter, saw a lot of engagement from social media. We had a lot of new customer acquisition. The numbers on my socials increased dramatically, particularly Instagram. I have learned that on Instagram, more people will follow you if you're actively doing something, when they're looking for you to say, I want to be kept up to date with this. Particularly on Facebook, what I found was very important was keeping my page fun during our Kickstarter, keeping people engaged, not just saying my Kickstarter. Once a week I like to do memes. They're actually the biggest way I bring people into my group because I share them around into other groups and then invite everyone who interacts with them. I had people like my meme, like my page, buy my product, even though the meme never ever mentioned my Kickstarter because it's all over my page anyway. So that would be my note on socials. Our cover designer for my book was absolutely amazing. I think that there are so many perks to hiring a professional artist, even if the artist isn't even involved. Collaborating elevates your product. I know that people bought my book because the cover art is so pretty, and they just hope the book is as good.
Illustration is a form of magic.
Yeah. No, when Maria Domova, she had a following, and when she wants to share the work she does, so she shared the book, and she said, hey, the cover that she designed, and she said, hey, if you actually wanted to go and read the book, here's a link to the email list. And so that was a way of growing the email list, and that was a nice little boost. How many do you think we got off that?
Oh, that specifically I couldn't say.
I want to say between 10 and 30. It's been so long since we had the cover design to actually get into the point of the book. But early on in our TTRPG stuff, there was no creator collaboration. The only creator collaboration we had early on was my very first one that I randomly popped on Twitter and was like, hey, can we just try something? And I wrote it, like I said, my poetry garbage. All right. It was okay writing. It was okay art. It was maps that were hand drawn. All right. And that was no one had a good following. We were all under 300 followers on Twitter. And that was our only social media that had any legs under it. And that was really just a case study that my wife was able to look at that and say, wait, stop. They gave you money? This? You can sell anything? And they'll buy it? Hold my beer.
In advance.
And we've been in business together ever since. She took over and said, let me show you how writing's done, how art's done, how maps are done. And if you can sell those guys, you can sell me.
I did have this mental block where I was like, but I'm not a professional artist, and I don't have like 1 million followers. No one's ever gonna buy my stories or my art, and so I just put this mental block, and then I see these 3 idiots on the internet.
But just have like
$300.
Three what?
Step aside.
3 idiots.
Step aside. I'm like, well, I can do better than that.
And what about you, Ted?
Yeah, so I think I've rarely been trying to use. I don't know. I don't necessarily seek out collaborations with artists as like a way of promoting, though. I think it's nice to like we brought in D'Angelo Murillo, who's a Hispanic indigenous designer to design some of like the regions in The Last Caravan, and like that was cool for his perspective and his writing talent, which is great.
Yeah.
But then also good to work with more people. Yeah, so I think it is valuable to have people around. Like the thing that I this is not exactly an answer to this question, but like I said that I talked to Spencer Campbell, and I talked to a number of other TTRPG designers, including some like major figures in the space, like Grant Howitt, who designed Honey Heist and all those other amazing things. He like found a half hour to chat with me, and I think that like that's been valuable and cool just to like get a sense of, these people are willing to talk to you, and like I'm not even making big asks, but like a couple people have retweeted about the Kickstarter just sort of natural. And I think so much of it is just about, especially in a space like this is a niche space. It's not like it's to some degree a product driven space, but I think really at its heart it's a community driven space. And so you want to connect with a community of people who are interested in this kind of stuff, because really like I could make $100,000 on this Kickstarter, and if nobody plays the game, it's a failure, right? Like it's not actually doing what I want it to do. And so you want to connect with those people. And so like in terms of the community, like I'm with a group, Ghostlight RPGs. I GM games for them, and they're just it's such an awesome group of people who sort of let me into their fold. They've been so supportive. We're running a stream of the game right now, and so like that's the sort of social aspect, is like trying to bring people in, not just as customers, but as participants, and trying to make a sense of like like Seth Godin talks about, like people like us do things like this, like creating a world in which people are creating a space that people want to be a part of because they're like that. Those are my people, and trying to be genuine about that. Like obviously, like you are selling a product, but I think trying to be genuine about creating your space. I think that's so. I think all that is essential. Like it's the same thing as funding your thing, in a sense.
The business major in me was very happy to hear a Seth Godin reference.
Yeah. Yeah, I read.
All creators want is to see people using their creations or enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When people post pictures on like social media of them like having my book or playing my games, just like it's the greatest joy.
What's hilarious is their packaging is so good that they take pictures of the packaging before they open the book, and almost never also show the book.
That's hilarious.
And paper wrapped, brown paper twined, and then she stamped it with a really cool wax seal.
Please, I want to see. Oh, that's awesome.
We love production value.
Yeah,
that's essential.
Here you go.
So this is the book, and this is how I package it, so you can see like this.
That's beautiful.
It's the letter A on the seal for Applewhite.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
I also like tuck in like the bookmark and the pin and everything.
Isn't it cool that in this industry you can do things like that, and nowhere else does that stuff anymore?
That's something that is scalable for us.
Yeah.
I am hand packaging over 200 orders for this most recent one, and I don't think I could imagine hand packaging any more than that. So I believe with our next campaign, it will either be a $1 add-on that I limit
Premium packaging.
That I limit to only 200 people. So like people can opt in for it, or I just say that premium packaging will only be for our first 200 backers who order physical copies.
When our kids get old enough to help out, it's going to be a different ballgame.
How old are they now?
Old school.
Like that 10-year-old, 11-year-old level where they're like barely useful enough to start helping us package things.
Yeah. Oh, they can be useful for packaging. Although you do have to check them because that's fancy packaging.
Can't have them around the hot wax seal press right now.
Yeah, that's true. Not yet. Yeah.
They might hot wax each other, and they'll learn a lesson.
Amazing.
But they'll have a beautiful A on their forehead. What?
I was like family vacation to the ER real quick.
Yes, that happens. All right, I'm going to bring up a slide, a screen, because I want to talk about process, and I think this is going to be a big chunk of tonight anyway. Let me bring up the... Okay, so...
No, we lost the Applewhite.
Oh,
Oh no.
We're here.
oh,
promise.
weird.
No, I mean
Oh.
they're in the video, but they're not in the.
Oh, they're in-
I'm seeing two of you, Scott.
Oh, what did that... Oh, that's weird. Let me hide that. I don't need to be there. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. So, I don't know if you can read if your screen's small, but basically I kind of broke down what I think a Kickstarter process or order is, and I want to talk about the individual parts in a moment. So, pre-launch, which is everything before you hit launch, and the actual the operating campaign, the final days of the launched campaign, because they change a little bit, I think. Post-campaign, short-term, things you do right after you finish. Post-campaign, long-term, which is delivery and shipping and printing and whatever things happen there. And then carryover, which to me is what you can carry from the finishing your campaign to your next campaign, because hopefully you're doing more than one. So I'm gonna have to bring this a little closer to me. So let's talk about product prep. So when you're getting your campaign ready, to what level do you prep art, writing, layout in anticipation of launch?
That's a you question.
Okay. I can go. So we have, and I will acknowledge this right now, an extremely fast turnover to our products. Our TTRPG materials we've only ever done as PDFs, and we tend to turn them out in less than a month.
She pre-writes everything.
I don't pre-write everything. That's wrong. So what I do is I write out I would call it a meaty skeleton for all the materials. It's not said exactly the way I want to say it, but it's all the information is there for the most part. I do front load quite a bit on the art, because the more graphics you have, available on your page, the prettier it's going to be, the more people are going to, be able to visualize what it'll look like. So I front load that quite a bit, except for things that will be stretch goals. I do those as a, as needed, as it comes up.
Okay.
After, what I leave for afterwards is doing like the final text polishes, formatting any stretch goal materials into the materials at large, and then formatting and cleanup. But I would say that I do 80% of the work before the Kickstarter goes live.
Wow.
Yeah. In this situation, so the Applewhites have done tons of Kickstarters. This is really my first TTRPG Kickstarter. But my general philosophy is, and with this project, has been 90% completion on writing and design. And then with art, we funded a few things. The thing is, like, our dreams are big for art on this, and we like really splurged on the amazing people we've worked with. So my dream vision of this has way more art than we'll even be able to afford, no matter how much we make.
That's
But
a note about ours, to make it seem like realistic, is like I do all our art. We don't outsource that. So it's just man hours for me. When you do have a professional artist, I understand not being able to provide that art until after funding.
Yeah. But I think it's really key to have a few pieces of art. Like, honestly, like our cover art for The Last Caravan by Jeff Langevin is 100% the reason we have any of the money that we raised. It is like, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I saw it and I was like, oh, this is a real game. Until then, it wasn't a real game.
Until
And
then, it's just words and rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Legitimizes products.
Yes.
100%.
It gives quality, 100%. It also means that you could charge more.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Even though the quality within it has not changed, but the cover matters. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the cover matters a lot.
Especially when you're working with a text-based medium like books or role-playing materials, they don't get to read the text, and so the art kind of has to make promises about it.
Well,
That's the part that you can really see with the board game. I think you can, at least mock up components, and there's the promise of things that you can touch, like coins or dice, But when you're doing it TTRPG, it's text.
do you do mock layouts?
Mock layouts,
Like you want to show
preview?
Yes.
We have done that before.
We have done that. We've shown, like, here's a character art piece that you put in there with the wraparound text, and it's exactly like the PDF you're going to get. You can also, what a lot of people do is just like, we give away the Argarth source material completely for free so that you can get a vibe check on, do you like it, the way it's written, the way it's formatted? Do you like the world setting that Kaylin's written up? And that's like the closest thing you can get to a demo tape in a very, especially because we don't print the books, very non-touchable medium.
Giving away that freebie, because we also gave away the first chapter of my book for that Kickstarter. Giving away a freebie kind of proves that you can put together a coherent thought.
Yeah.
Which helps.
It helps validate, and then it's about getting them to consume the freebie.
Did you have a business entity established before your first release? Do you have a business entity now? Do you do it under just as a sole proprietor or an LLC or incorporated, or?
Yep.
How do you get your funds? Because that affects how you get your funds, I suspect.
Yeah, for us, it was one, we started off with what we had a Kickstarter profile called Beta Games, BETTA. All right. This was our sandbox where we made all our mistakes here. Okay. And we were not legitimized. We were two kids just messing around. All right. We made dice bags that were awesome. That was one of our most funded before your book ever. All right. We did whatever we wanted. And it wasn't until the book, we went over to Applewhite Games, created a new Kickstarter. We said, this is about TTRPGs. And then when it came to the seriousness of, like, Kaylin loves to make TTRPGs, but what she wants her career to be, because what she loves the most, what she's wanted to be since she was, like, 9, is a writer. And so that was where I, as the husband and as the business degree, said, we're putting this in an LLC. All right, and we're going to legitimize, and that was like $300, probably less bucks to just get all the paperwork done, set up a bank account, make sure that if taxes came along, we were set up properly. But that was after doing it for like 5 years as two people on the internet screwing around and hoping the IRS didn't care.
I'm going to assume since you're here, the IRS didn't care.
Never made that much.
We didn't make enough for them to care.
And what about you, Ted?
Yeah, sole proprietor. If it becomes larger and more long term, that's definitely something I'd consider. But at this point, I'm just making the little that I am. So yeah.
Okay, so then let's talk about costs incurred in a Kickstarter campaign. So there's creative costs. In this case, business startup isn't there. Consulting or guidance. Do you pay anybody? Did you ever pay anybody to help you get through it, or is really all your costs art and writing, editing?
I'll say our base goal funding was $4,500. We spent about 25 almost 3,000 before we even started. That was a specific choice on our part, and none of that came out of a pocket of any of the creators. We have some really great friends. My parents. So I was like, hey, I know we're going to pay you back when this is done, but we want to pay our artists and people in advance. Nice. I just felt like that would be really the most professional way to go about it, was to make none of it conditional upon success, and also not put myself into a hole in the future. So like, with my parents, I could be like, all right, I'll pay you this back, or if this really doesn't go through. So I felt like it was quite valuable to be willing to invest in advance to make certain things come through. And so what we paid for in advance was art, the cover art, 2 pieces of character art. I paid a graphic designer. If you look at the graphic design of the page, it also looks great. Anything, if you look at, just a note, if you look at my Kickstarter, The Last Caravan, and any of it you like and think is cool, I didn't do it. Cooler people than me did that. Everything good about it is not my fault. Not my, yeah, I mean, not my work. And so like, I wanted to make sure that it was, that it was sort of well, that we had the foundation necessary for it to succeed. Because I think a little bit the dream that people have about Kickstarter is that it's the place where you get your seed money, but it really isn't. It's just a place where you can have a smaller amount of seed money. And so you really are going to have to invest something in order to get any kind of good return. And I think there is a thing where like the amount that you're able to put in advance, if you're smart about what you choose to pay for in advance, which we were pretty smart. I don't think we were like amazingly smart, but I think that's going to make a big difference. So yeah.
So I think that our models for how we went about things are incredibly contrasting. You told me with your first ever Kickstarter funded thousands of dollars. We went through the micro Kickstarter approach. I cannot stress how broke we were when we started doing this enough. We had no money. Our first campaigns, there was no investment. It was man hours only. It helps that I'm kind of a Swiss Army creator.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I do the art, I do the writing, I do the editing, I do the formatting. The biggest down payments we made early days was like I had to get an iPad to have Procreate. That really elevated our art at a certain point. But that goes over multiple campaigns. That's a tool.
Yeah, that's a good investment.
You paid for that in profits.
Now, yes, and it was paid for with the profits. Doing electronic materials meant no overhead, so it really was just time, effort, and then nearly all the money we got was profit. However, these profits were $500 average. We once got up to 1,000, so it wasn't anything really, really substantial or meaty. It wasn't until our latest one where I did my book where we did pay $1,500 for the cover art, which is an astronomical price. It was absolutely worth it, especially with it being my first book. I don't have a name to legitimize me. I don't have a publisher to legitimize me. I have a pretty picture and a smile, and it's gotten me this far. So it is true that you do have to make those down payments if you want to get to the thousands of funding.
Yeah.
And I think you point out. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I didn't.
The most worthy things to put your money into, and artists do deserve to be paid no matter what.
Yep.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
I'll just wrap up and just like stick an extra ornament on that tree of just that. Yes, the micro Kickstarter is a great way, especially when you're doing digital stuff. Doesn't require a lot of overhead and so on. But as Caitlin said, it's like specialists always make things better. Like what you did makes sense, and that's why it's worth putting money into if you have it. It wasn't. We ran out of profits with this last one to pay stuff. We finally pulled out of pockets, but that's also because we had proven to ourselves over and over and over again that we can do this. Yeah. We also had gotten to a financial place finally after me having a degree and COVID being over and getting a adult job. All right. Finally had enough money to say, I'm willing to put a couple of our personal G's, thank you tax refunds, toward making Kaylin's career happen. And at some point you do have to make that pivot.
So you mentioned a type of campaign, and I want to go over the types because a lot of people don't realize there are multiple types of campaigns with Kickstarter and other platforms. So micro campaigns you mentioned. There's quick start campaigns now, which I believe are very short, 15-day or under campaigns that are done very quickly. Regular campaigns, which are normally 30 days. And then on some platforms, there's longer campaigns. Crowdfundr, I know, does some that are 60 days or 100. I've even seen one 120 days. So what are the benefits to doing those other ones? And how do you make them work? Why would they have them? There has to be a reason they're there. Maybe they're not for TTRPGs. Maybe it's the wrong industry. But where do you see them falling in with what you want to do and how you work?
You okay if I take this one?
Oh, no, I'll do it. So We do a holiday special every year, which is less of a campaign. Usually we do like $10 for like a full campaign and then like supporting material. This one is like just a like one night of fun, and it's typically either Halloween or Christmas themed, and we charge $1 for what I would say is probably $5 worth of material, and we run it for like 10 days. And this is legitimately just an email collection engine. We get triple the backers we normally get on our larger products, and they come back again because every time you're backed, they get an email every time you do something else, and they like the one shot, they buy the bigger ticket item, you know. So it's a following generation tool to be used sparingly. We only do these once a year.
Yeah, that's one of the things of like how to grow the email list, growing the community, and it's harder to give stuff away for free than to get them to buy it for $1. I think like on one we had like 113 backers, and we were like, what? It would have been impossible for me to get the air growth source material in 113 people's hands. Okay, especially at the time. But saying it's a $1 special, all right, it's worth $5. All of that was true. It was already worth money. Okay, but now we're charging it. All right, it's a special deal. And we did have great retention of people coming back over. So that's one. I can go on about the micro Kickstarters, but I know that I want Ted to have a turn because I will be prone to ramble on that topic.
He's out.
No, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it because I'm really, I'm doing a very conventional 21-day, like a little shorter than average because I don't want it to go forever. But no, I'd love to hear more of your thoughts, Zach.
Okay, sweet. Buckle up. So micro Kickstarters have been around for a while, okay? And they're a lot like quick starters. In fact, you could just call them interchangeable, okay? The idea behind them is that like you're doing something that you feel very, very confident you can accomplish. You're doing it at a funding goal that you feel very, very confident that you can hit. One of the reasons I'm starting to really work at communicating this is that have you ever seen really good projects and their funding goals like $5,000 to $10,000, and they only raise $2,500, and so they're considered a failure, okay? And 80% of the time, they don't come back. They don't try and fund again. That person has been discouraged. That great project has been swept under the rug and will never see the light of day, despite all the work that was put into it. It frustrates me to no end, especially because I know for a fact, because we've done it, that they didn't need 10 grand. That's just what they thought Kickstarter was for. That's what they thought they needed to make it worth the effort, even though all that effort was already mostly front-loaded.
Yeah, especially if it's just electronic files.
Exactly. So that's where like micro is to say like, I wanted to write a book of poems. Did I need to write a whole book of poems and then sell a whole book of poems? No. I can sell personalized poems for $1. And then I can do that 3 times, and then I ended up selling 2 books of poems. All right? It's about breaking things down. Do we need to write the entire world of Aragarth, okay, into a one huge source material book that's 200 pages with tons of art? We've invested thousands of dollars, and so we need the $10,000 funding goal and put that out there after 5 years of work. We could, or we could release things one module at a time. Get people integrated in the world, slowly build a community that we can continue to retain and convert on. All right. And at the end, we probably will smash it all together, throw in some new cool stuff, and wrap up the world in a tight bow with a printed volume, and the audience will already be there. So the micro Kickstarter is really about building your castle one brick at a time, rather than all in one risky venture.
It's asking yourself, what can I realistically do, fund, put the work into right now, scaling things back.
Yeah. I'll also say that it's something you can do. I did all of that, the laying the bricks, while I was a full-time college student, working over 50 hours a week between 2 kids, between 2 jobs, and bringing children into the world. Okay. The other benefit of the micro Kickstarter, and yes, it's about 21 days, 14 days. All right. For the Kickstarter length. The benefit is that it's very manageable. All right. Yeah. Your propensity to burn out is much lower, and it will give you, it's a long-term pathway, and it did lead us to finally be able to be confident and have an audience and have the experience and make all of our mistakes in a low-stakes field to finally be able to launch Kaylin's book. And now she's off to a much better start than if we had just started,
Yeah.
you know, five or seven, whenever we started doing this.
The last thing anybody
know.
wants is to put their project out there and it to just disappear into the void, you know?
Yeah.
And taking baby steps is an easy way to overcome that. Speaking on campaign length, something I was very afraid of the first time I did my first Kickstarter, I was like, oh, we need to be out there as long as possible so
60
everyone can
days.
find us, you know? What we have seen every time is you get the big tick in the beginning, you get, and then it pretty much plateaus. You might get like an upward trend if you're doing well, and then you'll see like the uptick at the very end when people get reminded that you know about your Kickstarter, all your followers, watchers.
Followers, watchers, it varies.
Anyway, so and that trend, no matter how much you stretch it out or shorten it up, is not your juiciest time, no matter what. And speaking on mental health, I know it takes a lot out of me when we're on project. Oh my gosh, the compulsive refreshing. Oh my god. So keeping it like going beyond 21 days, you are running the risk of some serious creator burnout.
Crash. And even as a professional marketer, I'm like, what else do we have to talk about? Been talking about this for 20 days and we have 10 days left to go. You know, like, so we went longer with this book because we're like, we need this to be as big as possible. Let's give it a little extra legs. No, for us, the comfort spot's around 21 days.
21 days is a very magical number. If you're doing like a flash thing, there is reasons to do that. And like 10 to 14 days there. But like if you're going for a long campaign, keep it to 21. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, that's our recommendation and based on our experience.
Yeah, from everything I've heard, 90% of everything you get are in the first few days and the last few days. Everything in the middle is just, you know, social media annoyance time.
10% maybe.
The algorithm just is not pushing you during that time.
Yeah.
That's all you.
Yeah. So speaking of, okay, so we're still talking pre-launch. Do you use the launch notification as a way to gather people before you start? You know, where they sign up to be notified on launch? Was that valuable to you? Did you build up a good number of people? And how, like, are you able to track how many of those people backed it?
So yes, we're able to track it. And honestly, that's one of the tools that I think we underutilize. You know, is the preview page and getting people signed on for it.
We only just used it in our last campaign in any real way.
Yeah, because we connect mostly through social media and email list, you know, that we've grown over time, and that's a little bit more. It's easier in our process. It's a little more direct. And when we launch, we just shout it from the rooftops, and maybe we have, even though we end up with a couple of hundred followers, maybe we have 5-10 people following the pre-launch because we don't shout it that big.
You know, what the pre-launch really did for us this time and what really helped us in our first couple of days, and I'm not promising that this would happen for everyone, but influencers are looking for things that are about to happen. And a couple of like Bookstagram influencers got really excited about the project and were prepped on launch day to also make a big stink about it and share it around. And I just know that helped us a ton. And so really it's those influencers that, I mean, you might even want to like, we might try this, like reaching out to them and saying, have you previewed my page? Because they are going to have all these like micro followings that, you know, you could get them networking for you if they're excited about your project.
Yeah, if anything, we underutilize it.
Yeah.
And what about you, Ted?
I tried to push it pretty hard. We tried to get a lot of people looking at it and shared the basically whenever we were talking about it online, we would say sign up to get notified on the day of. So we ended up walking in with 350 people signed up to look at it in advance, which was really great.
Yeah, awesome.
And we got so I mean, it'll tell you, you can look at the stats and it'll tell you how many followers have been converted into backers. We didn't get like 100%, I think like I read an average that it was like 3% of your followers were back, which seems a little bit low to me, but that might be true.
Low to us.
This was low in our experience.
Yeah, it's also low for me.
It may be low
but
for our industry. Our industry seems very
maybe.
supportive.
That's very possible.
Yeah. So anyway, it was so yeah, we're around like 15%. But yeah, because we currently have 197 backers. We're right at the edge of two things. We're almost at 200 backers, and we're almost at $8,000. So, not that any of those are particularly meaningful, but yeah, kind of cool. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think the pre-launch page is really important. Like, we made sure to get it set up early. We had like the crappy original art before we got the cover art, and then once we had that really nice art up there, I mean, that's just. So that's the other thing, is like getting that visual to be there on the page, because that's the only thing they have. They have one sentence of information and one image, and if you can put a lot in that image, it's great. Another piece of just random advice related to that Grant Howitt gave was have a mock-up, especially if it's a product, if it's a book. Like people love to see what the book will look like and imagine what it'll look like in their hands. And and if you can get them to imagine what it'll be like in their hands, then they're much closer to buying it. So I think that was really helpful. And so we did that a little bit as well.
So when you set so how did you decide? Let's start with Ted on this one, because I think that you're setting different types of goals than the Applewhites. How did you determine the goal number you wanted and calculate how it would? I'm assuming you calculated that it would cover your costs at least.
Yes.
So how did you get to that number? And after that, let's talk about stretch goals. But let's actually set that first.
No, that's great. Well, here's the thing. I'm not actually, like, in this case, I'm not very much different from I think you are the Applewhites. Is that in a sense is that I said, what for me is the absolute minimum version of this product that I want to actually put out there. Like there's a version, like I could make a version of this game for $100, but it's not something I want to put out there. So I didn't set it that low. But the version that cost around this much was for me about the minimum that I was willing to put in. Like the minimum that I wanted, like, to put my name on. And so yeah, we just said, okay, how many pieces of art will we get? Basically, if you get the one piece of cover art, some character art, and then you fill the rest of it with, unsplash images of snowy landscapes. Because that's the nice thing about my game. I didn't do this on purpose, but it's a midwinter road trip during an alien invasion. And the nice thing about midwinter road trips during an alien invasion is that there are actually pictures of that. Unlike Grand Fantasy Kingdoms with wizards, you don't have pictures of that you can get for free online. So that was kind of helpful. And makes it a little bit easier to have a minimum viable product. So yeah, I just sort of said, what's the minimum thing that would make the thing that I'm proud of, and that would make me at least be worth my time financially. So yeah.
What about the two of you?
In the TTRPG space, really, it was just we started setting it at $100. Just as if we can't raise this, we're failing. And we need to know that so that we can get better, and we need to know that so that we know it's not worth. If it's less than $100, it's not worth our time. We're selling them for $10 a piece for the PDF. That means we couldn't get 10 backers. That means we're doing something wrong. Right. So with the digital stuff, that's what came in. You would be able to better talk about how things were priced out for the book, because that's where printing came into play.
Yeah, so we obviously had a higher threshold for that. Was it 1,000? I think
it was 1,000 for this one. It was 500 for Aragorn because we didn't have cover art.
Actually, by the way, before you answer that, is it print on demand, or was it printed off? Outside of a print on demand process.
So outside. We're placing print orders. I actually had two different printers because I had a hardcover that's very fancy that I had to go overseas for, and then the other one I just printed through Lulu.
Okay.
Which is a very simple and easy service to use. And you can just get the number that you actually need.
Okay. Now you can answer the rest of how you got to your goal. I just wanted to know because I know there's differences between those two that can be fairly substantial depending on what you're printing.
We so with the printing project, I think we went for 1,000. We tend to go pretty low on our funding goals. We ask ourselves, what is the minimum amount of money we need to make this happen? $1,000 was absolutely not the amount of money that we were putting in to make this book happen. I mean, the cover art alone was 1,500. Obviously, our goals here weren't like profit. It was more like exposure, you know, being a new author, I just wanted to get my books into people's hands. Also, when you do a low goal and you fund, then, you know, once you go up there, you're like 4 billion% funded, and that just looks super cool.
Yeah.
Aesthetically.
That's the nice thing. When I was running like literally a $1 funding goal, I'm like, look at me, I'm 1,000% funded. You know?
So it's very interesting, though. You set your funding goal below your cost. So
Yes.
you were actually taking a hard money risk.
Yes, we did. Because like we were saying, it wasn't as much about profits. It was more about exposure. As far as profit, we raised 7,000, even though our goal was only 1,000, with print costs, ship costs, and a couple of mistakes. I think we made like $300 profit by the skin of our teeth.
But we have leftover product that we're going to be selling at in-person events. In-person events is also proven. We've only done a couple, but that skyrocketed Kaylin's social media, and those in-person people are much more bought into your product and bought into you because Kaylin's lovely. They want to go out and back her. So that's the other part of the strategy that's developing of like this secondary market side, you know. And I know we're supposed to be talking about before the Kickstarter. That's all after.
Yeah. Actually, why don't we take a break for an intermission? We'll come back in about 5 or 6, 7 minutes, whatever we need. And we'll then start talking about launch and after, because there's just so much at pre-launch. It's like, God, there's so much here. Let's talk about it at that time. And when we come back, we'll get to the meat of all this stuff. We'll see you all in a few minutes, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Everybody's done. Bio issues are resolved. Let's move on to the next part. So on our tree, let me go to the other page because I like the one with the process. So launch and the campaign itself. So one of the things, all of us are creators, not necessarily great business people, but we're all, I think, competent creators. Who manages your crowdfund campaign and handles your messaging, and how much of an effort is that for you once the campaign launches?
We're basically...
I was like, I'll let Ted go first because we got a lot.
Yeah, I've done less of it, so I'll give a quick thought. I think, like Kaylin was saying earlier, there's the it's a little bit like, you know, whatever your superstition is while you're playing sports is that you just have to refresh it at least 5,000 times a day. You got to make sure to check the numbers. I mean, I'm really running the thing for myself. I have, you know, my developmental editor is doing some things as well, but it's, you know, you want to be responding to comments and you want to be, you know, making posts about it and doing like personal reach outs. I'm also, you know, trying to reach out to press outlets and see if we can get features. We got a feature in Dicebreaker, which was really great early on. And so I think, yeah, that's some of like the active work that I'm doing during the project.
Yeah.
So for us, like there's lots going on when you're active on Kickstarter. People are messaging you with questions and you're hitting stretch goals and you're posting updates. Keeping the audience engaged with the updates is really, really important. It shows that you're active. But to me, the biggest struggle with that is finding a balance between staying on top of everything, which you absolutely must do, and making sure that you're not constantly on. Which is very, very easy to do. There needs to be this is the time I go to bed, and anything that happens after this can be dealt with in the morning. I'm a human person who needs to sleep. You know, one thing with our last Kickstarter, because it was a very important one to me, I let it completely take over my life. for like 30 days, and it nearly killed me. It destroyed so many of my healthy habits.
Yep.
Next time, one of my main goals for the project is to do it for myself in a healthy way. You know, messages don't need to be responded to in 6 minutes. They can wait a couple hours. You know, you can make that update at a time that's convenient for you later in the day. You don't have to drop everything and do it right now. And this is gonna like religiously offend some people. You're gonna get the funding or not, whether or not you're watching it. That doesn't actually help. And that's something that I have to even train myself on. I think that probably 40% of the effort I put into my last Kickstarter was nervous energy effort that I did not need to be spending. You know, you do need to be on the ball, but you can do that in a way that has boundaries. And you should go outside.
Yeah, and one thing people don't realize when they start a Kickstarter is that there are people all over the world at every different time of the day messaging you. Just because they're in Australia doesn't mean you have to wake up at 2 a.m, check everything, and answer them. So
no, they understand who they're dealing with. Think about it like if you go to a farmer's market. You don't expect everyone there to be a perfect, polished person.
Yeah.
You expect them to know their product, and you expect them to treat you with courtesy. And, you know, that's it, though. You know, and you understand that there's a human connection there that you're not getting the corporate, you know, cookie cutter thing. And it's a little grittier, and we like that. You know, your backers will understand that. And if they don't understand that, maybe they're not your ideal backer.
I don't think anyone expects an immediate response.
No,
from Kickstarter.
We've done over 20 Kickstarters. We haven't had that kind of issue. This was a higher pressure one because this was the debut novel for the thing that you've been dreaming about since you were 9 years old. And I think you were actually frustrated with how more laid back I was with this one because
it drove me nuts.
The way that I do things is I do all the planning, and then it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and I'm just kind of, well, when we have stuff to talk about, we'll talk about it. I have Facebook ads running. I have X, Y, and Z planned. And in the meantime, I'm not worrying about anything, you know, but it still was this last one was big for us. It was massive disruption. The thing that I would tell others who are planning to do this that I'm going to do for myself next time is write down your daily habits that you already have in place, because you don't realize how important they are. You don't realize how hard you worked to build those. And Kickstarter will rip some of them away from you, and you want to get them back as soon as you can because it will help your sanity.
Well, in scheduling like appointments for you to check the Kickstarter, appointed times. I check it in the morning, I check it at lunch, I check it in the evening, you know.
Other than the first 2 days, that you're allowed to be chaotic for the first and last 2 days. We're talking about the in-between here.
I would also say it definitely helps to go into a Kickstarter with a detailed plan of how you're going to do things. I know that with this latest Kickstarter, we panicked because we had decided not to do stretch goals, and then everyone wanted a stretch goal.
Wow.
And we just started panicking. It's like, what's a good stretch goal? What's enough? What's, you know, what's too little?
Because at this point, we'd already gotten over a couple $1,000s, and we're like, well, we can't just give them a sketch and...
Well, anyway, so this was our big boo-boo of the Kickstarter. We did an enamel pin. It seemed like a good idea at the time. It's cheap. It's got some weight to it. It doesn't seem too inconsequential. It's special enough to be a stretch goal. What we hadn't factored in, because this was a split moment panic decision, is that when you put a pin in with the book, you don't get to pay for media rate anymore. And our shipping cost almost doubled.
So a quick explain media rate. U.S. Postal Service, if you live in the U.S., you can ship books and I believe movies as well for a very low cost shipping rate.
Like $3.
But if you stick so much as a bookmark in there, and you're shipping out, 50 to 200 of these, processor who touches and feels that bookmark has the right to open it up, see it. They will withhold that mail, make your backer pay to receive that mail. They'll have to come to the post office to get it. So we didn't realize how much we undercut. We ate up almost all of our margin in that last minute decision that we were never doing again. And we learned we didn't think we needed stretch goals because it was such a complete product. We had no idea what we would add to it. It's a book, and it was already, we had two different products. We have the paperback and this really big ornate. We could not make the book more ornate. You can see she's consoling the business side, the marketer in me. It's
So
really stressed.
So
with
Ted,
it.
what have you run into as far as stretch goals? Like, I know that yours has stretch goals. Did you have them all when you started, or did you add them as you went?
I've had them all since the beginning. What I planned, this is the one of the few smart decisions I made in this thing, was I wanted to have only a single physical product, which is the book.
Yeah.
Not a single other physical thing. I wanted every single package to be the same that I sent to every backer, because I know it's going to be a pain to do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make it just as like that I could just sit there and do it as easily as possible and not make any mistakes. All of the stretch goals are digital. So I'm a composer. Some friends and I are composing a full album of music for the game, or we've composed a few tracks. We're hoping to do a full thing, but that's the $10,000 mark. We unlock that, and then the rest of the stretch goals are just art that will go in the book. And so, what I just wanted to do was make this a supremely deliverable Kickstarter was the plan. And so the thing I've been having the two big challenges that I'm currently thinking about are international shipping, which is that I'm getting a lot of demand from demand from a few people who are outside the country and would love to get a copy, and I'm trying to figure out what those costs would be, because I don't want to overcharge and I don't want to make it impossible for them, but I also don't want to get my profits eaten up by having to spend it on shipping. And then also people are interested in a hardcover copy of the book. It's currently just like a soft cover, which I'm hesitant to do a second thing. If we get above all our stretch goals, which at this point doesn't look likely, but could happen in a crazy situation, then I would consider doing a hardback as well. But I'm hesitant. I just want to make sure that my first project is as simple as possible. We'll see.
Quick chime in on that. You can always do another run in the future of like, hey, we're doing a special hardcover edition. You always have that option, so don't feel.
Yeah, that's a good
For all of our TTRPGs, we had stretch goals all planned out ahead of time.
Oh yes, we did like more art, more maps. Maps is a great stretch goal that's not too hard to do. I highly recommend using Incarnate for your maps. It's an amazing service.
That's badass. Yeah, I love it.
I'm a Wonder Draft and Dungeon Draft person, but yes, Incarnate's awesome too.
Yeah, no, those are both great too. Good tools.
Yeah, they're wonderful tools. All of those.
Yep, I will say, Ted, you mentioned something, and I want to caution other people against this. You saying about how you only had the one product. I see a lot of Kickstarters. They're like selling something like, let's say, a video game, and they're also selling tote bags and hats and shirts. The logic behind this makes sense on a surface level of like, it's other stuff you can sell to help raise more money to do the thing. The problem is that now you're shipping 20 things in different sizes, and you're not an apparel company. That's not what you wanted to build. You wanted to sell a game. And so that's just something that I think that a lot of people misunderstand, that what they think is an opportunity is actually a burden and a distraction. Focus on your core product.
Yeah, all those things add to cost in multiple ways. Shipping is one of them. Collating. If you have a fulfillment house, they're going to charge you more for all these little different pieces. So you're going to increase your fulfillment costs plus your shipping cost. If you end up with a weird shape or size box, your shipping goes up again. Like, you need to stay within standards or things just get crazy cost-wise.
Everything's got to be printed at the same time.
Every new element you introduce to fulfillment is an opportunity for something to go wrong. And so the more moving parts you have going, the more likely it is that one of those moving parts is going to jam, and then the whole thing explodes, and we're all in a panic now.
All right. Let's talk about marketing, because marketing is, if you don't do marketing well, it's very likely you're not going to hit even a moderate stretch goal. You've got to do something. So what marketing did you use? Social media, email marketing, press contacts, because there are press people in TTRPGs. I don't know if you know that. Getting reviews, paid advertising. I mean, what did you use and what worked for you?
I'm happy to let Ted go first.
I have not done a ton of marketing. I've spent $120 so far on this whole project.
Good Roy.
20.
Nice.
Yeah. So the only advertising I've done that has cost money has been Instagram ads. And in Instagram, I think all these social media platforms have really like highly specialized things. And so I specifically said, okay, I want people who know the movie Little Miss Sunshine, who are interested in XCOM 2, or who like tabletop role-playing games, who are from the age of 18 to 45 and who live in Austin, Texas, New York, California, just like a very specific set of cities. So that's like kind of cool. And I have had like 11,000 profiles that have seen that ad for like $100, which is pretty good. And it's people who are like at least to some degree interested, and you get a good amount of website clicks. But I think that the more effective marketing, honestly, has been, I got together a list of like friends and people who I thought might be interested, and like sent 2 emails, one a month and a half before the Kickstarter saying, hey, if you want to sign up, and share with anybody, and then one the day before. And so like I think like sparseness is good, especially with friends there. And then just trying to be smart with Twitter. I mean, like every retweet and every comment you put on a post on Twitter, it exponentially increases how many people see it. And so that's been quite there's actually been a pretty good amount of traffic from that. Whenever any bit of press or anything comes out, we just like dogpile it with people retweeting it. So this is not none of these are fancy marketing things. I'm sure the Applewhites know cooler stuff than that.
Interestingly, with yours in particular, I came across yours via Ghostlight RPGs.
Yes.
I thought it was their Kickstarter. I reached out to them to ask them if they wanted to be on the show, and they were like, "It's not really ours. It's Ted Bushman's." And I was like, "How did I thought I misread it?" So I went back and I looked again. I'm like, I was like, "This is smart," because
it's
I
intimately
knew
connected with them.
Yeah, there was a connection, obviously.
Yeah.
But getting other people to share your content really, I'm sure, helped grow it, and exponentially, like you said, it grows that way.
Yeah, usually. If you have friends you can mobilize without hurting your friendship, it's a pretty worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, it's funny when ZealZaddy first started creating product, I didn't create a product. I told my partner, I said, we're not creating any product until we have 2,000 followers on a platform. I didn't care which one it was. It ended up being Twitter because I'm more active there, I think. And I think that I like the way the platform functions. I like shorter conversations, that turn into threads and things like that. So we got to 2,000, and the next week we already had the product ready. We started releasing, and it helped us make sure that we had at least somebody to talk to. I mean, that was my goal. I want to have somebody to talk to. I don't want to talk to 10 people. I don't think that's a good business model, to talk to 10 people and hope you get 10%. One.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What about the two of you?
So I'm literally giving a lecture at the Origins Game Fair on content marketing. So right now you're going to witness the struggle of me trying to condense everything that I want to talk about for the next 6 hours into something very much more concise. So the first thing is that Ted touched on it. Definitely, like, if you actually know where your first 10, 20 backers are coming from because you know them, that's huge. That is a great foundation to start on. All right. As far as like, I'm naturally a content person. I have I think I'm up to 15,000 followers on TikTok now. I started on Twitter, and then when I went to TikTok, I just started reading my tweets. That was it. I'm a very do as little amount of work as possible and get as much out of it as possible, and try not to. I'm better at telling you what not to do. Don't try and hit all the platforms all at once. Yeah. That's the first mistake that people make, is they try and do everything all at once. Quick burnout, and you're not going to get a foothold anywhere. Start with the platforms you know on the social media side, all right, and maybe one that you're interested in. Okay, so I was interested in TikTok, but I had grown people on Twitter and Facebook. A couple of hacks I'm going to give to you. One, Facebook pages and groups are extremely easy to grow. Okay,
Yep.
so you grow. I started D&D Unlimited as a Facebook group. I just made memes and I screenshotted tweets. Screenshotting a tweet, even if it's your own, putting it into a Facebook group or page, you share it into other D&D groups. And because it's a screenshotted tweet, there's a psychological element that makes you believe that it's more important because it's cross-platform. Because when that first started happening was only with celebrities. So there is a heightened, this is the degree talking. There is a heightened perspective of importance. Okay, you put yourself on a pedestal and you'll get more interactions. I learned later that instead of doing the group, I should have been doing a Facebook page. We did this with Kaylin. All right, I screenshotted her tweets and I made her memes to start, and then she's taken over. It went even better. But what we do is we share that into other groups and pages, and then when people like it from that group, so we create it on her page, share it into a book group, and she gets 200 likes. She would have only gotten 20 on her own page, but the group has 10,000 people, and it was a funny meme. She can click on the amount, that number, and there's an invite button for all 200 of those people to go and follow her page. And that's how we grew that profile. That's how I started with the D&D side. And now Twitter is more for her, just an engine of building content to actually go to the Facebook, where that's her best conversion.
Yeah,
okay?
That's one thing.
So
Facebook, for people who don't know, Facebook groups are the shit. They're really valuable.
So easy.
Marketing
Actually, the
tools.
only reason I go on Facebook.
Yep, me too.
You know, because my feed's garbage. You know, I don't want to hear what my uncle's doing. Okay. So that's the first bit. The second bit I'll say is you talked about ads. I've done a lot of Facebook ads. That is all about new customer acquisition, and I'm just trying to get what I'm paying for to be equal to the customers I'm acquiring. So if I spend $10 to acquire a customer who spends $10 with me, all right, that's an equal acquisition. But I'm very good at selling to them again. The lifetime customer value is higher than $10. So that's the one thing that people very easily get into, is like, I spent $100 and I only got $90 for people backing it. This is a garbage ad. No, it could use some tweaking. Got people who never would have heard of you. And if you're good at what you do, you will sell to most of them again.
Yeah.
All right. There's a million other things I can say, but there's also a million other questions that you have. So follow me. If you want to hear more, hit me up in the DMs. I'm open for questions, and I'll invite you to my Discord group of tabletop business people.
So a note on lazy girl social media advertising, because I hate social media. If I had my way, I would have one personal Instagram account that was set to private, where I could share cute pictures of my coffee and my chickens. So what I do is I once a week on Saturday morning spend an hour of my time setting up my buffer for the entire week.
Pause. Buffer is an app.
Yes, so Buffer allows you to simultaneously schedule and post cross-platform. So I'm able to do the same post on all of my things and not have to worry about it so much. I do my highest engagement stuff on the weekends when I can check it more readily to get those like invites on Facebook, you know, but I like only having to worry about my social media on like one day. The second thing that I've learned is, like, if anything is happening with your project, if you just got your stamps in the mail or whatever is happening, I'm, you know, putting stamps on envelopes, or, oh, no, my like delivery got here, anything, post about it, post about it, post about it. You know, let them feel a part of the production process.
Yeah, the experience. They want to experience you.
We went to Barnes & Noble and just took her book with it, and she just took a picture, was like, someday, and had a huge outpouring from her now regular following of like, yes, girl, someday.
Yeah.
Today, put it there. You know, so since she took over, everything's gone skyrocket because she's so in control of her message now.
Anything is content if the picture's pretty enough.
Yeah.
I want to stitch that on a pillow.
So
We put
let's
it on a
talk.
poster.
Let's talk about the first 2 days and the last days. What is different about those days in a Kickstarter? Because they are the most important. Everyone knows it, but what makes them different?
We just talked a lot. Ted, go for it.
I feel like, well, on this one I've only done the first two, so I'll update you on the last two. But I mean, I think that there's the energy and there's the excitement, and so like being able to capitalize that on day one, and like we were lucky enough, like we pushed it and tried to make sure that we could fund on day one. We funded in 12 hours. And that was that's a big boost just to like be able to say, look, we funded, this is successful enough. I think that's a major thing to just like sort of show people that you're legit. And so pushing towards that was a big deal. And yeah, just like, I think it's just important for getting enthusiasm. I think that's most of what I'd say. And then for the grand finale, you just got to make sure that people be back. I don't know. Tell me how to do it. Let's see.
So the first couple days are just going to be insanity. I do think that funding in the first 48 hours should honestly be a goal. Mm-hmm. If you're setting such a high number that you can't reach it in the first 2 days, your number's too high. You need to scale back. I think that if a project gets to the midpoint and it's not funded, people lose faith and stop backing, and you just stall out. Yeah. Anyway, so the first couple of days, you're going to get the most traffic you're ever going to get. You're going to want to spend the most time with it, really encouraging that traffic along, and be ready for that traffic to slow down. You do not need to keep that level of attention the whole time, and don't be disappointed when it tracks down, because it absolutely will, because the algorithm stops pushing you. Something that was a surprise to us with our last campaign is that we didn't get the spike at the end that we were expecting. Mm-hmm. Usually there's a last 48 hours mad rush, because not only do you have your watchers coming in and getting their backing, but you also have, there used to be a ending soon category that would push you again in the algorithm, and people would get it when there were less than 48 hours left. As far as I know, Kickstarter is no longer having the ending soon category. I could not find that. We were not featured
when you're searching in the Kickstarter search for campaigns.
They have replaced it with funding soon, or just funded, or something like that, to bump you when you're funded, which I think is less of a good feature, because that tends to coincide with, newer campaigns that are getting pushed anyway. Mm-hmm. But it shouldn't be too much of a surprise to people who have active Kickstarters now if you don't see that huge bump at the end, though we still saw a good raise.
We did, and like she said, also, if you're halfway through your campaign, if you're at the end, if you're in the last 48 hours and you still have a good ways to go, you're just not going to get the bump, because no one wants to back a losing horse. All right, so it's more of a matter of, if you already have success under you, or you're so close to victory, that's where you're going to really see the first bump. I'll also say that ours actually, the third day made more money than the second day, I think, with this last one.
Wow, that's interesting.
It just being a couple bid days. And then we also got the projects we love.
Yes.
So we also got a little boost from that.
Nice.
First 2 days are going to be crazy. I took off work. Like, I've done this long enough, and this was a big enough deal that, like, for that first day, I took off work, because they were blasting every avenue you have. Hey, grandma, like here's what's happening. Whatever email list, anything you have in place, probably some things you don't, and then you're just a nervous wreck for the rest of the day.
A note on projects we love, because I know we all want to get into that, because you do that, get that extra badge of authenticity. Mm-hmm. Some notes in getting to that: the less gimmicky you can be, the more likely you are to be in projects we love. So if you're doing like the hat and the t-shirt and the sticker combo pack, and like gimmicks out the wazoo, you're probably not going to end up in projects we love. They like simple, honest campaigns, with high attention to detail and craftsmanship, that are personable. Put your story into the page, make the Kickstarter platform fall in love with what you're doing.
After that, it's all luck.
Yeah.
Because that is you, that everything she just said is about being attracting to the people behind Kickstarter, because it is the people behind Kickstarter who on their own discretion say, I like this. They're not very clear about the system, but to me it comes off as like, hey, every employee is allowed to nominate this many people a month kind of deal. And so it's about standing out to those people who see Kickstarters all the time and, like she says, don't want to see gimmicks. They want to see authenticity and that you really care.
Ted, do you have a plan for your last couple days? Like, did you take off work? Are you preparing for it?
I think I have a few sort of folks who I think I'll reach out to, folks who have shared it this time, and sort of be like, hey, if I think like a blast from a few people would be good, and then I'll reach out to any outliers from my list of people who I assumed would probably back, and yeah, there's that's most of the plan at this point.
I'll just wrap it up because I meant to say this. Last couple of days, lots of FOMO. Let everyone know that this is their last chance. Okay, give them the statistics, how far they've come. Like, hey, 200 people have backed this. Give them that what we call social proof. Hit everything, and this is the portion where you can over communicate to the people that haven't backed yet and shout from the rooftops like, this is the last chance to get all the Kickstarter exclusives, all the stretch goals that have been unlocked. Here's what the campaign's been doing. Don't be afraid to communicate an uncomfortable amount. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because like Kaylin said, a lot of people
do you lose followers from that? Do you end up losing followers from that, or have you noticed?
They're bought in. They want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
Many times when you say like, look at how far we've come, they're part of that journey.
And when he's saying over communicate, we're not posting multiple times a day and spamming people. He's saying like posting,
not on the Kickstarter. No.
Oh, definitely not on the Kickstarter or our socials. It's maybe like once a day for the last like 3 or 4 days. I don't know.
For the last 2 days on my socials, I'm posting 3 times a day at least.
Oh.
Like on Twitter. Here's the thing about Twitter. You can post 20 times a day. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can post 20 times a day. In general, what is recommended is an 80-20 split of 80% fun stuff that people can connect with and want to like brand jive.
Yeah.
20% self-promo. And the less you can get on that 20% in your day-to-day is fine. And for that mid-campaign, that's good too. In the last 2 days, I'm good to flip that ratio.
Yeah.
I will 80% sell and 20% entertain you, because I only am going to do this for a couple of days out of the year, and then I'll go back to that 80-20.
Right, your moment to shine.
Yeah. And if you lose followers, they were never going to buy from you.
Yeah. So you got to the end of the campaign, you funded, your campaign ends. What comes next? Like, what do you do now? I mean, outside of the most obvious, which is thank all your backers, which has to be your most important number one thing is thank everyone.
Well, it really depends on, do you have vendors? What is the mechanism of your fulfillment?
Assume so. Let's just assume so.
Yeah. Well, obviously you're touching base with vendors, you're getting a timeline. I like to actually post into the Kickstarter updates a few days after we've ended. Here is what I expect timeline wise. Mm-hmm. Paperbacks are not going to be funding at the same time as the hardcovers. Give them a very clear, I did like literally an infographic, this day of what they can expect going forward. And then when things change, when exciting things happen, keeping the audience, engaged with, new step, I got these in today and now I can start packaging them. Hooray. Makes them feel like they're invested part of the process. You don't want to just disappear until a mysterious box shows up on their door 3 months later. And they're like, oh, wait, oh yeah, I backed a Kickstarter 3 months ago. If they want to be invested, give them that opportunity.
Yep, let them be part of it. The only thing I'll add to that is be ready to educate some of your backers. If you bring in, you can tell the Kickstarter will give you the statistics on how many people, this is their first Kickstarter they've ever backed, which is the most amazing feeling to me, to bring new people on the platform. This book is what we had the most people ever. I think like 20% of our backers
Wow.
had never back to Kickstarter before. And so we also were very communicative on like, hey, here's what a backer survey is. Here's what stretch goals are, and here's what that means for our production and what you can expect. And what we need from you is to fill out that survey so that we can have all the information to deliver your rewards as quickly and safely and correctly as possible.
You can assume that about 5% of your backers will need some hand holding in getting their payment to you or their survey to you or something.
Oh, that's a fun one.
And I'm sorry, and funds as well. The number that you actually reached on Kickstarter is not the magical number that you're going to get into your bank account. Kickstarter takes its cut,
10%.
and backers error out.
Yep.
Some backers will never get their payment to you. They were lying.
Oh, wow.
That happens.
Now you can actually, I want to talk about that. One, yes, take 10% off the top. That is Kickstarter's 5% and a payment processing fee of between 3 to 5%. All right. And then you'll have errored backers, usually much less than 10%.
Yeah,
we only
that's
had
rare.
like in this case, because we have the higher basket item you have, the more likely that's going to happen. So if you're just selling $10 on our PDF, not happening a lot. But we had a book that's like up to $40 and plus, and so we had some drop backers. Message them and let them know they're already getting an automated email, but because it's coming from Kickstarter, that might be in a spam folder. So it is okay to say, hey, I just want you to know your payment is in error. If you need some help, let me know. We had that with the backer who's just like, can I just Venmo you? And we're like, say less. We got you. And so you might be able to collect on some of those errors. Some of them, it just wasn't in the cards for them, and that's unfortunate. You got to move on.
But out of 200 backers, we maybe had 5 who ran into this issue. So it's rare.
It doesn't happen often for us, at least.
But it doesn't.
What about you, Ted? What is your planned process for once your campaign ends?
We'll get to work. I think for me, the plan is make sure once I know exactly what that once that money is in hand, honestly, as soon as we get the stretch goals, like we've already talked to our character artist who's going to do the rest of our character portraits. So like trying to get those done even during the process. For me, it's going to be doing layout for the book. So I've done all the writing, but because I don't know all the art that I'm going to be including, I'm waiting on that until we have it all set up. So I'm going to be getting to work, and my hope is to try and do layout, just like lock myself in a room for a few weeks over summer, and finish up the layout. And then, just basically, work really hard to make sure it delivers, because my big priority is I don't want to have one of those things that just gets extended and delayed forever. And I think, by keeping it small, I've sort of set myself up for success in that sense. But yeah, that's the plan, is just to make sure to, I got paid. Now I got to make sure to do the thing that they paid me to do.
Are either of you going to open a Backerkit store to allow sales of it after the crowdfund? Because I know Backerkit allows you to do that.
I am doing that. I'm curious to see how it goes. But it turned out to be so far it's been the right choice for me. But we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. So for us, this is actually an area where I think I differ from a lot in the industry. I don't like fulfillment sites. I do fully support the fact that they are a great way of making money after the Kickstarter for add-ons of, like, I've seen a lot of board games like, would you like extra metal coins? Would you like to buy this other game we did a while ago? It's a great way to make money. For me, it adds confusion and friction for the consumers who don't want to have another extra step. And this third party, I thought I was backing a Kickstarter. What is a Backerkit? All right. I have chosen for my own personal reasons in that to completely avoid and sidestep. We do everything ourselves. And as long as I can scalably, do that, that's what we're going to continue to do.
You also save money, that you keep more of the money because you're not paying a fulfillment house, and you get, it sounds like you're getting a very low shipping cost because you're doing book only and for the enamel
digital, so that there's no cost at all.
Right.
Also, don't do a secondary market like DriveThruRPG, because again, I don't like people taking a cut. So we put it on our own website. I also don't want to have to be pushing these products all the time. I'm excited about the new thing. People can find our website, they can go buy on it if they want to, and that's great. But I know I'm going to sell it to them on Kickstarter, and that's what I'm going to focus on.
Well, and with the add-ons, the product's never really dead. You can always, when you run your next campaign, especially when you're doing TTRPG materials, oh, buy this new one. Oh, did you miss the last one? Add it on.
We do an add-on for like $9 for any of our last ones. That's made our baskets bigger.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and it's gotten us funding higher and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Great feature.
So when do you get your funds, and how do you get your funds from the platforms?
So for us, it's 14 days. About it all is different for every Kickstarter. They make you set up a lot more in payment. We had to set up a Stripe account and a whole bunch of other stuff. That it's actually a good thing because that makes it more secure for the backers how much effort we now have to put in, and it's really only 2 extra steps. And we also, because we're an LLC, we had to give them an EIN number. That's something that you have to worry about if you're at that level. It's only a minor headache, and it's more security for the backers. But after you've done that, you do that before launch. So by the time you come around to fulfill, you're all good to go, and you're just waiting for that 14 days for everything to process out and drop into the bank account that you gave them.
Same with you, Ted. You expect it to be the same way?
Yes, indeed.
Actually, I have a weird question. If you said that there was a small percentage of people that had said they were going to back but don't. If you're near your backer goal and those few that don't back don't pay, could you lose your backing?
You are, after the thing is closed, if they don't pay, you're not considered unsuccessful.
It's not
You can
right.
make a decision
Okay.
as a creator to cover that. If you can't, you can issue refunds at no cost to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just wondering if those few people that didn't pay, like you just barely crossed your threshold. If
Yeah.
they
It
didn't
can't
pay, could you actually end up losing your Kickstarter funding goal and them not saying you're not
No,
funded?
after whatever number you reach is your, funding total.
Okay, so it doesn't matter whether they pay or not as far as whether you stay funded.
Yeah. Now, what can happen is that you can get a drop backer. Someone said, "Oh, I want to buy this for $40." They get to their paycheck at the end of the month, it's gone, and they say, "Actually, I'm going to drop out." It's very rare for that to happen en
and this
masse.
happens when the campaign is active. It cannot happen at the end.
Right. It has never been a problem for us. I have only heard freak cases of that ever being a problem for other people, and they were able to find workarounds.
Yeah. How are actually, I have a question for Ted because I didn't ask him that one, but I did ask about the other one. Ted, how are you handling your printing? Are you printing on a regular press, print on demand?
I'm using a service called Mixam, which I think is similar to Lulu. And they've just been I've seen some other TTRPG creators use it. It's pretty simple. You have some preset stuff and can just send them all your layout. So that's my plan. So I'll get a proof from them and then approve it.
And how much of when somebody backs you for the book, how much of that I mean, if you don't want to answer, I mean, you don't have to, because I'm really asking about like how much of that cost is book and how much of it is not book, is
Sure.
profit,
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
quote in quotes, air quotes, profit.
Yeah, it's profit because you paid all the production costs. So the specific printing costs of a book around for what I'm wanting to make is between $8 and $13 per physical book, but that reduces as the bulk increases very slowly.
How many pages?
The plan is to be 168. It may go up to 175.
Okay.
Probably not 200. Reasonably sized.
Right. Nice. And when you do your printing, are you frozen? I couldn't tell.
No.
Oh, no, you're not.
We're
They're
just
moving.
wrapped.
You
wrapped
two are so
attention.
still. I thought you were frozen. When you go to print, do you factor the cost of the print as a percentage of what you want your goal to be, or how do you calculate out the value of the printing? I assume you have printing costs figured out before you start your Kickstarter. So is your goal a percentage above that, or except for the one book that you just did where it was less than the cost of the cover.
Asking us?
Yeah.
So that's a conversation that we need to have about our next project, whether to again go for that just lower number and seeing where we get to, you know, and assuming we're not going to take a loss, you know, but you know, were we to factor in printing is hard because it's by unit, so that's a really hard one to estimate. But our upfront costs really aren't that much besides the cover art itself. So one might, you know, raise it up to 2,000, you know, that would cover the cover art and make at least a sizable chunk in the
printing
the
cost.
copies, yeah, that would need to be ordered. And there's also shipping to factor in as well.
Shipping's the hardest one to factor in. Shipping industry, especially internationally, it's been very finicky, you know, which is charge more for
and that
international.
Was something that we talked about with this first one, whether or not to do international shipping. And I'm doing a hardcover edition in this Kickstarter that won't be available on things like Amazon later. And I didn't want backers to miss out on that opportunity if they really wanted it. And so we made it for that item only optional for an extra $20. And it was already a $45 item. So I figured nobody's going to do this, you know, but it's there if one crazy person, we had like, I think 11 crazy people. Yeah. So,
I didn't want to do it. That was her. She loved backers more than me in that moment. I'm like, nope, I don't want the headache. It's not worth it. No one will do it.
Our margins on the hardcovers were already really good. Charging $20 for the international shipping, we are still losing out on $12 of profit, you know, but we're also getting the international exposure. So it's
still
really
have profit. It's just $12 less.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so it's just, you know, what's the most valuable, and we're still making that profit that we would have had before.
Yes,
even though
that's still a sale we weren't going to have, even if it's a lesser profit in the end. And like she says, that's another person reading her book. That's another book review. That's another shelf we're on, and that's another person we could sell to again, and who will help market us by talking to people.
So now that you've done Kickstarters, what do you get to carry from your previous or current experience into your next Kickstarter? What things are, because, you know, everything is, you know, adds on top of other stuff. So what gets carried on to the next one? Ted, you're going to be doing one. I'm assuming you're going to do another one. So what?
Another Kickstarter after that?
Yeah. So what comes from that? What do you learn from this, or what value do you get out of this that gets to go forward? I mean, I know, for instance, you get the email list from your backers. That's a super valuable marketing tool.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you get to carry over that you didn't have before you started the Kickstarter?
The big thing for me in the TTRPG space is making connections with other creators and with people who just do stuff in the space. So like, I think, you want to be a part of a community, you know, and I think that's really the essential thing. And so I'm hoping and so I think about that in all the relationships that I'm developing. So like if I'm asking someone to retweet something, you don't want to have an extractive model with people. You don't want to be just trying to get something out of them. You want to make a connection with people so that down the line in your next project, they're interested. And the other thing is that like a lot of I'm trying to make sure when I'm talking to the artists that the deals that I'm making with them, the licensing agreements are going to be useful for future projects. So like, for example, we've got a perpetual use license on the cover for future editions of the book, kind of thing. You know, you want to make sure that you've got that possibility. And like if I was to go to promoting it, like I only got a promotional license for the duration of the Kickstarter, and so like it might be the kind of thing. Okay, well, you know, we do another thing, and I'll pay you another $100 to use it in the posts for a couple months. So that's the I think there's like a lot of sort of, especially if, you know, for example, I was to do an expansion to the Last Caravan that's like doing the Canada setting, you know, the Great Frozen North or whatever. Like that would be you'd be building on you know, the reputation, I guess.
Yeah.
So
nice. And what about the two of you? What do you carry from one campaign to the next, making each one easier than the last? Or
it gets easier when you're doing like the same kind of project, you know. like I said in the very beginning, you know, you kind of get this like skeleton for the page itself, so that comes together much faster. You get a cleaner timeline of when before the campaign should I begin talking about it and how much should I update the project. You just kind of get a feel for these things through experience. Obviously, you will start to fund faster because you have, you know, hopefully you have a fan base that was happy with your first or, you know, previous campaigns that are excited to back you again because they've gotten an email, because they've backed you before. You know, Kickstarter, I do believe, has a snowball effect. It just gets bigger and better, you know, because you're just getting louder.
Mm-hmm. The things I'll add on to that is, one, you learn from all your mistakes, and you get to carry that into, like, that's another great thing about us going micro, is that we made all of our big mistakes on a low stakes, you know, kind of gameplay.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'll say is, specifically, because there's a lot of talk about the email list. So I want to be very clear. So you can get the emails in the survey, and there's also emails attached with everyone's Kickstarter profile, and you have access to that as a creator. You are actually not allowed, it is against Kickstarter policy, for you to just download that to a CSV or an Excel file and call that your email list. What if they give you your email list for a reward delivery? It is for the reward delivery only.
Okay.
All right.
Important.
However, the Kickstarter project updates go directly to their email. So every time we launch a new Kickstarter, we update the past Kickstarter, and it's its own pseudo email list. You are also, either via Kickstarter direct message or in those project updates, able to say, hey, will you join our email list? Or, hey, will you fill out what we do is, will you fill out a survey to tell us how our product did, what you liked about it, how you found it, so that we can help and you can help us build better stuff for you. And at the very bottom,
this is not the reward survey that he's talking about. This is a separate optional link that they can click.
Yes, that we're putting in an update of, hey, you got your product 2 months ago. Tell us how we did. And if you want to hear about our next project, please, please, please sign up for our email list. Here's a place where you can do it. So you have multiple opportunities to touch them, but be very careful because they have every right to report you. And this has happened. All right. I'm in a book group that talks about this all the time. Is writers who misuse the emails that were not given for a newsletter purpose. They were given for a reward purpose. Yeah. That buying one ebook got you on the worst newsletter ever. Don't be that person, and don't get reported and have your Kickstarter suspended, because Kickstarter will prioritize backer experience over your newsletter.
Yeah. So I just want to ask one more question, and it's about self-care. What do you do before, during, and after to bring yourself level again, like to handle the stresses of it?
I would say beforehand, have a plan. Have a plan. Have a plan. And then during the campaign, pace yourself and follow the plan. And most importantly, don't panic. You know,
and suddenly decide to have an enamel pin stretch goal.
Yes, don't do that. Don't make snap decisions. Trust the plan that your wise, wisdomous, non-stressed self made before you started this. You know, try and stay healthy physically and mentally. Keep the Kickstarter project in its own limitations and boundaries. Not everything needs an immediate response. You know, and then afterwards, honestly, if you can manage it, give yourself like 2 days, like where you like say, yay, great, that was so awesome, everybody, and then just like detox and then talk to your fulfillment people. You know, take a deep breath, celebrate, go out for drinks, have a big slice of chocolate cake, and pat yourself on the back, and then go sleep for 9 hours.
Drink water.
Okay. Ted?
I think for me, those are all fabulous suggestions. I think that's very wise. And,
except the water.
What? Water is essential. I'm constantly talking about hydrate. But for me, one thing I did, today. This is so we launched on Tuesday. And so today I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about this at all today. Like I've set up all my stuff for next week. Like I can get back to bouncing stuff on Monday.
Nice.
But for me, this is just a signal that I'm an addict. For me, starting to work on a new project, like basically getting into a space of pure creativity, not thinking about practicalities. Just writing something that's interesting, not being beholden to anybody about what it is. That I think is really rejuvenating and important for me. Getting myself into a trance state with something, I think, is quite valuable.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I could do that during a Kickstarter. I wish I could just change the channel.
Oh my gosh.
Be more like Ted.
Have some undiagnosed ADHD.
Right.
Great.
All right. Well, I think it's been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot. I think that everyone that was here learned a lot. When it drops to YouTube and to podcasts, more people will learn a lot. There's a lot of creators that are very afraid to start off. And my whole goal with this is to help, I don't want to say relieve the stresses, because it is stressful, but make them understand that they're manageable and that you can do it. At some point, prepare it, be smart about it, prepare it, and press launch, and become a creator. Or we're in a golden age for a reason, and I think there's a lot of value in us being able to maintain it and keep it going, and that requires an active community continuing to grow and push forward for more and newer and cooler stuff. I want to thank all three of you for coming on and sharing your knowledge. I know it's a complicated topic, and it kind of meanders into 400 different topic areas, but kind of breaking it down is important. So why don't I give you all a chance to say who you are, where they can be found, where they should go to back your backer, if you have something to back, and we'll go in reverse. What were you going to say, Ted?
Oh, I was just going to I could do that, and I could make a final comment as well, which is that I think the last thing that I would suggest and that I would sort of put as an invitation is I think make sure to be supporting other people. I think that's like Jamie Stegmaier. I think it would recommend good stuff like that. Make sure to be supportive of other people's things. So like my plan after this, I'm gonna be posting about the Applewhites thing sometime soon. And Scott, if you've ever got a project, I'd love to hear about what it is. And anybody who's listening and watching this, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear about whatever your project is. I'm nobody. I'm not important. I don't have a lot of anything, but I think it's fun to develop those connections. So.
All of that's not true. You are important. You are somebody, and we're happy to have you.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So why don't we start with you, and we'll go counterclockwise.
Yeah. So my project is The Last Caravan, a Cars and Aliens role-playing game. You can find it on Kickstarter or at my Twitter at Ted Bushman at Twitter. That's really mostly where I talk about games. I also have an Instagram at Importance of Being Ted, which is where you can find me for just my own life and some of my other creative projects as well. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right, Zach.
Zach Applewhite. I'm mostly just here to help her achieve her dreams. On the side, though, if you like to be entertained with D&D funnies, I'm on TikTok at Zach Applewhite. I'm on Twitter at Applewhite Games. And I am now I have a Discord group that is slowly growing, that is Tabletop Business Masterminds. If you're interested in joining, I'm just there to talk about all things marketing, take questions. I do one-on-one sessions with members and record them with the group. Just hit me up, either comment on ZealZaddy stuff, tag me, reach out to me in the DMs, whatever. I'm happy to drop you an invite link and start helping you achieve that goal of getting to whatever it is you're looking to create.
Awesome. Caitlin?
I'm Caitlin Applewhite, and I am a writer and TTRPG creator. If you're interested in my TTRPG materials, they're on sale at applewhitegames.com for the PDF versions. If you're interested in my book, Awakening Anne, one more time, we're going to look at the cover because it's so pretty.
It's beautiful. Very
it is
beautiful.
Available on the ebook on Amazon right now, and it will be in paperback this August.
Nice. And I am Scott. I'm one half of ZealZaddy. You can pick up our D&D 5e product on Drive2RPG. We are moving to Cypher, so that will be... we're kind of in the middle of going through some content and preparing some future things to expand our repertoire. And we hope you find those interesting also. Thank you for joining us on Story Talk. We are most Sundays. We are not next Sunday. We are the Sunday after that, though. And we'll be talking about one system in particular. It is an appreciation of Esper Genesis, which is a wonderful 5e science fiction setting. So I do 4 appreciation episodes a year. We've done Cypher, we've done Underground Oracle, we've done Esper Genesis, or we're doing Esper Genesis one more later in the year. And thank you for joining us. We will see you on the next one. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.